hear me fine. Hopefully, it's not too noisy in the background. I will be going on mute as Silvio joins us. Yeah, Vincent, me too. I have played around with the podcast. Actually, I've been on invited to a couple of podcasts here lately, which is kind of nice. I opened my email box up. I did one podcast, and then somebody else saw it, and it's like, I'd like to invite you. And then somebody else saw that one, and then wanted to invite me. And then the person who saw the first one recommended me to somebody else, and it just starts the chain. It's kind of fun how it's happening, and I podcasts are fun. I mean, what better way to get your message out and get an audience, right? I don't care what you're doing. Hi, Hazel. Vincent, quick question for you. What's the weather in North Carolina like? Hello, Silvio.
Hey there. Hello, everybody. Nice to have you all here. Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
was wondering about the weather too.
Well, I'm asking North Carolina because my it's starting to get cold. Yeah, I don't like hearing that. My golf coach is actually going to be in North Carolina, and he invited me down. Uh, Basically, I just have to get on an airplane, go down there, and the rest is taken care of. So as long as it's not too cold, I may take him up on that offer. But what is cold? Is it going to be in the
Yeah.
50s? All right. Well, let me know what. Give me a weather report there, Vincent, if you can, as we go. But let's get right into it. We're about a minute away. Um, Thanks everybody for coming in. Obviously, those that are going to be listening to this in replay, uh, thank you. Again, this will be on our YouTube channel. Plus, the replay does obviously go out to all those who do register. So appreciate you. I have even the Philippines in here, and we're uh, we're growing, and there's even more coming. But we will let that kind of stuff for later webinars. This one is all about the podcast. Okay, exciting.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Hmm.
I saw Vincent. It's 69. Okay. Well, okay. I don't know. I always have to do the translation. So I guess 69 degrees.
In the teens.
Fahrenheit to Celsius. That's 20 degrees. Okay.
It's
I
not
mean,
so bad. Not so bad. It's
not so bad. Not so bad. Yeah. Well, no, actually, speaking about weather, and I don't know what's going. Well, I kind of know, unfortunately, what's going on. But today it was like here in the northern part of Italy, which is usually, I mean, at this point, it's usually pretty cold. Actually, today was about like 90 degrees. And it is
whoa.
absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's not normal at all. You see, I'm with a
Mm.
t-shirt, and usually at the mid October we should be wearing like a sweatshirt or something like that. So, just talking about talking about
Yeah.
weather, it is going a little bit crazy actually to
My
be
parents did the same thing, and they're over in Canada. And mom's like, "We're still in shorts and flip flops," and I'm
yeah.
like, "I'm in Minnesota, and
That's
I'm freezing my butt off." So
you're in the only place that will be safe
yeah, oh,
from
it's
global warming.
bitter,
So
bitter cold. Yeah, I think
yeah,
so.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, and today also, well, thank you everybody for being here. I'm not completely up to date on US or the American continent holidays. I guess today it's a double holiday. Is that right? It's like Canadian Thanksgiving and Columbus Day, right?
I believe so. My mom did wish me a Thanksgiving, and so I believe it is our Thanksgiving, and then I'm not sure about the American side of things, but I
I
believe
think
we're
it's if I'm not mistaken, it's Columbus Day, and I don't know
hmm,
if in this age
banks are closed. I
of
know that, so I think so.
different, let's say, culture, it's still celebrated somehow. But anyway, thank you all for being here, even if it's on a in a holiday. And I know you were attracted because I know that the topic is pretty interesting. And preparing, and we're going to talk about podcasts, right? About using MobiFirst to create and distribute your own podcast, right? And so as I was preparing not for this webinar, I was searching for a little bit on Google how to submit like your podcast to Spotify, how to submit it to Apple, and all that, right? And so I came, I encountered, I searched on Google, and let me start to share my screen. And I noticed, and let me know when yeah, you should be seeing now my just, very simple Google search. And there are a ton of podcast hosting platforms, right? I mean, I just was, I knew a few. This one was a guy actually that I used to know, how to start, how to upload a podcast, and all that. There are a ton of podcast hosting. And so that was just a very quick detour. I was, you know, mm, I know I'm the one who mostly created the platform, thanks to the whole team, thanks to Scotty and all that. But I'm surprised every time that something that we call a widget, right? So it's like an additional feature or something that you can plug into your website. For a lot of other companies, it's their business. It's their core business. Our booking, the Calendly, let's say the similar to Calendly, the booking widget is a business for a lot of companies. The podcast widget that I'm going to show you today, it's a business. I mean, there are businesses that thrive and base their whole company, existence on what we call a podcast widget. It's just an additional widget on our platform. No, so I just wanted to point out this thing, which is a little bit funny in a sense that we have like 10 businesses, and we offer you 10 businesses, because never forget, and if you're here, I'm sure you are well aware of this, but never forget that everything that we give you, everything that we build for you, you can resell it with your brand. I mean, that is, I think, an incredible power that you have, where you basically can compete with just one widget. You can compete against all those other businesses. And my idea, my vision, our vision is that an integrated platform like ours is the future, because it's the future and it's the present, because otherwise you would need to have a subscription for your podcast hosting, a subscription for your booking hosting or service, a subscription for your e-commerce, and so on and on and on and on and on. And the bill gets, humongous at the end of the month. And the management, quite simply, the management gets, very, very complicated. So I just wanted to point out that, again, it struck me. And we, at MobiFirst, we not always realize what we have and what we are able, and what you guys can do with us. So it was just something that I wanted to share, because it was a thought that I had, since we are talking about one of our many, actually, powerful widgets, one of the many powerful widgets that we have in our platform. Anyway, this being said, now let me share my screen and let's get into the technical side of our usual webinar. So let's wait for a few seconds as usual. There we are. Okay, so let's start from our usual homepage, from our usual site builder, obviously. And this time we're going to talk about, as we said, the podcast widget. Here it is. Okay, so as usual, it's just another widget. So let's choose this one. And here we are. We have created the podcast. Now, a very quick primer, a very quick introduction to podcast. A podcast, which became very, very popular a few years ago. I used to have a podcast here in Italy. Everybody more or less has a podcast. And it's a very interesting way to share information, to share and to create a community and to create engagement, because you basically share an audio file. You add an audio file to your blog, to your website, and then you use RSS. I mean, it's incredible how old and simple in reality the technologies that are used by these extremely now apparently advanced and modern features. These are all web technologies, and so that is another reason why I strongly believe, and I always insist, that the future the past, the present, and the future is the web, because it is open, it is simple in reality, very simple to use, it is redundant, resilient. Anyway, a podcast is basically just a way to list your audio files and then have an RSS file, right? Which, summarize them all, which syndicates them, which you can use to share them on Spotify, on Apple, on a ton of other platforms, so that basically your users, your listeners, can then listen to your podcast, so to your audio, on their phone, because that is the basic, the most common usage of a podcast. Again, never be fooled about strange buzzwords or complex descriptions and all that. It is a blog, so it is a list of items on a website where you attach, very simply, an audio file, right? So a file that you have created on your computer by recording your voice. I will show you later, if you want to, what I used and what I still use for my courses to manage the audio of my videos, or just the audio of my podcast. And then you upload it, you attach it to a post, right, to an element of your blog. Our system takes care of showing the player, the audio player, and the RSS feed that you can then add to Spotify, to Apple, and all that, just to share it and to make it more available. Again, a podcast is simply a list of audio files that can be shared with RSS. That is all what a podcast is. So how do you manage and how do you handle this on the platform? We said that we created the podcast widget. So we chose the podcast widget and we added it to our page. At this point, we can start customizing the podcast. So our demo podcast. The first thing we do is we give our podcast a title, a description. This is the demo podcast now. All right. And then we can upload a cover image. The cover image is usually 1400 by 1400 pixels. That is what is, let's say, the most, it's a square, and that is what is usually good as dimensions and sizes for the cover image. I downloaded a cover image, a sample cover image. Here it is, and let's upload it. Okay. Then we can start filling some custom, let's say, fields for specific for podcast. For example, the author name. Okay, the author email if we want to, and then some keywords. These are, let's say, still relatively similar to what we used to use for SEO, right? So here you can do, again, news, technology, keywords that people might search for when you want them to find your podcast. Then we have something specific here, and this is useful, especially if you want to share this on iTunes or on the Apple podcast hosting, or better, podcast sharing system, the iTunes category. Okay, so here you have a drop down, very, very simple, and you just select the one that is most interesting to you. In our case, let's technology. I guess we can choose technology. This is all you need. This section right here is all you need to create, let's say, to give the structure, the basic structure and basic information about your podcast. So again, a title, as usual, as it happens with your blog, as it happens with your web pages, there's a little bit of SEO, because obviously now everybody and his dog has a podcast right now. And so people search for podcasts. So that is where choosing the right title, choosing also a compelling cover image. Very often people, are very, visually driven, right? So they see a nice and attractive cover image and they click on that podcast just because they like that. So using a cover image. And for example, you can use Canva to create your cover image. You find them on Dribble. You can pay somebody on, again, something like Dribble or something like that to have your cover image, I mean, a custom coverage image created, or you can just create a very simple JPEG or PNG, a square image, 1400 by 1400 pixels. Then obviously the author name and email, and then the keywords, again, can be relatively important, relatively interesting. Now, let's start by this. So we save and update. Okay, and so we have saved this. Then we have the player. We're going to talk about the player after, obviously, we have added our first audio file. This is another very important element. It's probably the most important because while I know that a good chunk of people, for example, used to listen to my podcast on the website, right? So they would come to the website either via mobile or via desktop and listen to it on the website. In reality, the majority of us, the majority of the people listen to the podcast either on Apple or using a third-party app. I used to use an app called Overcast, or now everybody is on Spotify, right? So in order, and we will see this later, but let's start introducing this. As I said previously, the podcast is a list of episodes, a list of posts where you attach a list of episodes here, where you attach an audio file, which can be shared in a special format of RSS. All right? The RSS URL, because in reality, RSS is a format that, generates a file, okay, which is hosted somewhere on the web, okay, just like your pages, just like any page of your website. The RSS feed, it's called a feed, is for your podcast, is in this case at this URL. Okay, you copy it, or you see the QR code, or you open it, and this is it. Okay, so for example, we open it, and now that's because obviously, okay, first, that's because obviously I'm on my local machine. But that is where it is, and I'll show you when we are online. I'll show you where we are online. Okay, so that is absolutely what it is. Okay, here it is. All right. So you see now, quite simply because locally I don't have HTTPS, obviously, and you see now this is the RSS. Now let's not go too deep into the technology side, but let's go a little bit deep because you are here also to learn, let's say, the behind the scenes of the web or all of these technology. So this is the code, let's say, the source of an RSS file, okay, which is an XML, let's say, dialect, right? And this is specifically for sharing podcasts, okay? So you see that here we have our title, we have our link, okay? We have the description, the summary for iTunes, we have the last build date, and then we have the image. You see, this is the cover image that we uploaded, and then we have the category and the keywords. This is the base structure. Now we don't have episodes yet, so this file doesn't make much sense clearly, but this is what you will have to share on Spotify, on Apple, iTunes, or wherever, to share, to distribute your podcast. Okay, so you just get it here. Okay, now one additional step: once you share your podcast and you distribute it on Apple or on Spotify, they will give you back a URL for your podcast. Okay, okay, right? They will give you a URL for your podcast. So, okay, right? Podcast. For example, every podcast on Spotify, right, has a URL. Okay, you see it here. What you can do on our platform, you can add it here. You see that you have all of these options. Like Apple and Spotify are the most common ones. You can add it here. You will see later on when we will actually see the podcast in action, you will see what this is useful for. Okay, let's take some questions. Okay. Sounds a bit rough. Okay, so many. All right. Yeah. No questions yet. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Just let me know if you can hear me right. If you can hear me clear. Everything is clear. If there are no questions at the moment, let's. Okay. Very good. Let's proceed. All right. So let's go again. Obviously, so far I've just shown you. Let's say the frame, right? Within which we will actually create our podcast. Let's start adding episodes. Again, an episode is just a post, like a post in a blog or an article in a list of articles. The only difference is that being a podcast in this case, the first thing you need to do is you need to upload the MP3 audio file, right? So you have to create an audio file, convert it in MP3. I'll show you a tool, a free software that you can download, that is extremely that works very, very well for managing sounds, intro, anything, which is free to use, by the way, and very simple and very powerful. So I have an audio file here. That's a very simple one. It's a sample audio file, and so let's upload it. And once you have uploaded it, the system gives you a preview. All right. So here you can play it. I don't know if you hear it, but anyway, you can preview it here. Okay. Now, so this is the core element, obviously, the audio file. At this point, we can start giving some information about this episode. So this is the first episode, okay? In this episode, we test the podcast widget. All right. So again, we gave it a title, okay, and a description. This data will not be shown on the website. This data will be added to the RSS feed. So it will be shown then on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts or whatever, right? Then we can set a publication date. And again, as you can read here, if you set it in the future, this episode will not be available until that date. So this is useful for again, you can upload 10 episodes in your podcast, and you then drip them, right? You then say, okay, one per week. You just say the publication date is this one, then this one, this one, and this one. This is very useful, so it can save you a lot of time. You upload them all at the same time, and then they get shared, and they are made available only when the time is actually right. And then in addition to specifying the keywords for the whole podcast, you can actually specify keywords also for specific episodes, right? So here, for example, I don't know, we can add demo, and this one is especially important on iTunes, because you can set it to yes or no if it's explicit. So if you say some bad words or some topics which can make it again explicit. You can also upload a cover image for each specific episode, right? So, for example, let's search cover image. Okay, we can search tree, for example. I search for this for a sample. So for some sample cover images on Dribble, and I don't know, I like, for example, this one. It doesn't really mean anything, but so we save this, okay, and then we just upload it here, okay, and we upload it, okay. So again, as we did with the podcast, in this top section, let's say, of the Site Builder for podcast, we have uploaded the audio file, okay, and here we have you. Then we have given this episode a title, a description, an optional publication date, some optional keywords, explicit, and an optional cover image. The cover image obviously is not mandatory. If it's not there when needed, the system will use the, let's say, default or the podcast cover image. Okay, so let's start saving this. All right, you start previewing this here, but let's proceed. Since obviously our platform is not just for hosting podcasts, right? It's a widget within a website, within a mobile first website, by the way. You can add then all of the contents that you want, which will surround and, be together with the actual podcast. Because again, while, being able to share your audio in your podcast is good, it's also a website, right, which functions for SEO, which is needed for your users and all that. So here you just use the system just like a regular article or just like a regular post, for example, in your blog, right? So we can use the same title or we can change the title. This is the subtitle. This is the abstract, is the abstract in this. And then here, and as you see, we can also generate some text with AI. This is the body for the podcast, for this podcast episode. Obviously, what is very common is that in the accompanying text, you either add the transcription of the podcast, obviously, or you add some notes or some links, anything that you want, right? Because clearly this is a link. Obviously, you can link, you can do whatever you want with this, right? With this, all right. You can add images. This is just a regular, let's say, content block widget, which has again the additional benefit of being able to have an audio file attached. Okay, so let's save. And now let's go see our website. Okay. As you see, this is the classical list. And as you see, we have a preview of our player, okay, of our audio file. Okay. And then if we open the episode, if we open the title, okay, so if we open the actual article, we see the actual podcast um, episode where we have the title, the subtitle, and then we have this player. This player has been created custom by us. And as you see, you have the player here, you have wave here, you can change this. I don't know if you hear, you can see this, then you can go ahead, we jump 10 seconds backward or 10 seconds forward, and then you can share and subscribe. This is where so this is again the front facing. This is the website, your website, the website where your users would go to listen to your podcast. And in any moment, they can copy and paste the RSS feed of your podcast. Or as we said, you remember we said we are also on Spotify, so we can share here. We can share as many as we want, and then you click here, and you're taken to. Now this was obviously another podcast, but you're taken to your podcast on Spotify if you are hosted there. As you notice, we have the body, the link, and everything else. Okay. So as you have seen, this is a very simple, but that's all you need. Now let's see some more customizations of this widget. But as you have seen, as usual, now obviously I like to talk. I take long time to tell the story and then to go a little bit deeper into the things. But we have created our podcast, which is here, in 5 minutes. Just the time to upload your audio file and to upload them, to find a cover image, and that's it. And then people that will come to our podcast can always share it, right? Grab the RSS feed, and then we will see what we can do with this RSS feed. A few small, but I mean important if you want to customizations are obviously we can change the let's say colors of the player. For example, we can make it green and purple. Okay. So you see the background and we changed it to green, purple. Okay, and then we can have two versions of the player. One is full, which is this one, you see, which is, let's say, large with the preview of the cover image, the whole, everything that we have here. Or we can have the compact version. Okay, now obviously it doesn't change in the preview, let's say in the list, but it changes here. You see that it is smaller. You don't see the wave, but it is exactly. It works exactly as the rest. Okay, so these are some other customizations that you can have. All right. Available at any. So yeah, again, let's say that a little bit of a problem with MobiFirst is that it is always too simple in reality to create and to use the widgets that we create. So now let's jump a little bit to questions. Let me know again questions that you have.
Still
And
no questions. I honestly believe everybody's sitting back like I am, like kind of like they're jaw dropping a little bit and going, "Holy cow, that's been right there in front of our face for how long?" kind of thing. So, that was
yeah,
cool,
yeah, no,
Silvio. Yeah,
if
that
you
was so
search
fast.
for, okay, yeah, no, I know exactly, and in reality, it happened to me too, in a sense
Mm.
that when
Yeah.
I built this quite some time ago, and then and now let me share my screen. If you search for podcast hosting, there are a ton, and they cost a ton of money. By the way, and top 31 best podcast hosting sites. Obviously, we are not a podcast hosting platform because I don't think there should exist a podcast. They have exactly the same thing that we have, and in our case, it's just one widget. Like, the dozens and dozens others that we have. Why should you use a dedicated podcast hosting platform when you can have your podcast right there, right here? This is the podcast. There's nothing else to it. It's I find it. I don't know. We should. I'm afraid that we're gonna kill too many industry, too many industries, too many companies.
That's what I
Because
said.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
understand who could use something else. And again, I'm not saying this because this is the best one, or obviously, I'm not saying this because I created it. Clearly, I tried to do it the best possible that I could. But quite simply, I wouldn't understand why somebody that has in his platform this widget right here should use a dedicated podcast platform. There's no, again, which are expensive, Now this one, but Sprouts, okay, pricing 2 hours each month. We don't have this kind of. 12 hours each month, or let's say 6 hours each month, which means like 1 hour per week, more or less. It would cost you just, for that, $18 per month. Why is that? Or better, this one actually, since I'm talking to people who would want to host and share their own podcast, but also that would want to offer their customers the option to have their own podcast. Again, it's just another tool, another feature that you have I don't know, a restaurant example, and they want to do a podcast every 2 weeks about food or something like that. Why would they want to use anything else than what you already give them? Because you are giving them the menu, maybe the restaurant menu, then the food ordering, the website itself, the reservation, and now you're giving them also the podcast, right? And again, I don't know if you use the podcast widget. I maybe the problem that we have on our platform is that we have too many things, and so we need to do these webinars and talk and explain even more in depth what we do, what we help doing, what we help achieving, because I don't know why these people should exist, honestly. Sorry, I mean, I've nothing against these guys, obviously, but in general, that is really the philosophy, right? Why would you do something which doesn't give you everything that you need? Because this, trust me, this is everything that you need. You don't need anything else for your podcast. And even more so, let's go now to see how we can share our podcast. Again, obviously, now I'm not going to share this because this is on my local machine. But how do you submit your podcast to Spotify? Very simple. You just go to Spotify. You Spotify and you sign up here, podcast or Spotify. So you sign up, and then you just share. You share your RSS feed. That's all you have to do, which is this one. Now you will notice, by the way, again, let's go again a little bit deeper into the technology side. You will notice that now we have all this part right here. You see that everything is contained, apart from the RSS, is contained by this channel and channel tag, right? So this is our channel. These are the details about our channel, okay? And then every episode is an item within our channel, right? And so you see that now our RSS feed has had a title, a description, which is similar to the summary, a link, which is the link. In this case, it's the link to the audio file. Then the enclosure, which is another link. These are some specific fields for the podcast RSS, let's say, version, and then the publication date, and then the keywords. Remember the iTunes keywords, and if it was explicit. So let's try validate the podcast RSS feed. Okay. No, we need something where we can validate the we need to validate. Okay. No, we need to validate the content, because obviously validate by direct input. Here it is. Okay. So let's see if our RSS feed is valid. Maybe, I mean, it could be not valid. Okay. Warning. Okay, no, it's not validating it as this is not valid. We will need to validate. I mean, you can validate your RSS feed when you create it online, because obviously this is on my local machine, so I wouldn't be able to validate it online. Okay, but you would be able to submit this RSS feed just to and you see that it uses the podcast iTunes and then podcast definition, and that is all you need to again generate and share your podcast online. That is everything you need. You don't need anything else. So okay, let's see if there are some questions. Okay. So let me stop sharing. Okay, just quickly, by the way, we can add this as an option on websites. Don, well, yeah, I mean, you can add this as an option on your, if you're a white label, you can add this as an option for your customers' websites, or you can just use it on your websites, exactly, using Product Manager. Yes, that's another revenue stream. Again, we saw that they offer podcast hosting for $18 per month. You can do it, as a bonus. You can add it for a certain price. You can say, I'm going to host your podcast too. I'm going to build your website, and then I'm going to host your podcast for $100, $1,000 per year. I mean, anything, right? Something like that. And then I'm going to show you the tool that I use to create the tools. And let's see, my kids stole my, okay, my mic here. I used to be a relatively professional podcaster. Now I don't do it anymore. But I bought this mic here, and it's pretty good. It's a Samsung Matter. Now, I mean, there are some other pretty popular and pretty powerful microphones now. I found one on Amazon the other day, which I would like to buy. But this one, actually, I like the aesthetic of this one too. So I used to, like, you can use this to record your voice. I used to have also, that little thing, the little like round thing, which softens your like T's and P's and R, so you don't spit into the microphone. Anyway, if you want to do, again, this one is a relatively old one. There are a few for like $50 or $60, which should be good. And then again, let me share my screen now. So I will show you the software that I use. Maybe somebody already, and no, I need to share the whole screen. And yeah, let's see when it is actually shared. Okay, and the software that I use is called where is Audacity. Okay, it is called Audacity, right? Now it's opening up, and it is free, so you can just search for Audacity, obviously audio software, or Audacity for Mac or Audacity for PC, and then you just now this is obviously in Italian, but it would be in your language. So you select just the registration source, right? If you plug the micro if you plug this microphone in my Mac, it would appear here. And then you just record your voice. You see your cord audio, right? Okay. And then you have a ton of features. You can obviously cut. Then you can, I don't know, flatten if you want to. Right, you can flatten. Then you can again do a lot of things that I don't even. You see, you can then play with the intensity. You can like add. I mean, it is extremely powerful. You can obviously, you can control everything about your audio, let's say wave, and then you just go to export as MP3, right? So your registration, what you were just registered, you can export it as an MP3 file, and then you can upload it and use it on our platform. So yeah, again, it's called Audacity. I have obviously no affiliation with these guys. I just liked it. It is free. So again, you can be a podcaster at zero cost, apart from the mic. But in reality, you can use your phone, or you can use. I remember that when I used to be a podcaster, I was like driving, and I recorded a couple of episodes with my phone, and so with my phone audio, and it worked. It worked pretty nicely. Yeah. So yeah, Charles, thank you. You've been using. Charles says that he has been using the MobiFirst podcast widget. Very nice. Thank you. And he shared the link. So yeah, let's go check it. Nice. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Very, very interesting. Good. Awesome. Nice job, actually, Charles. I love that. Yeah. I've not got involved with podcasts, yes, but isn't the hosting platform really for exposure for your podcast? Yes, exactly. Like you host, let's say you need to host the podcast somewhere. I mean, you need to put this audio file somewhere, right? And then you need to have the RSS feed also hosted somewhere. That is the service that we offer, right? So we offer you, as with many other things, we offer you the ability to upload your MP3 file. So we host it, let's say, or we manage it. We manage the hosting of that audio file. As you have noticed, it is actually hosted on AWS, but through our premises. So we host it, and then we are able to arrange it on a website, right? As we have seen. So you have the player and all that. And then we generate the correct RSS file that you can then share on Spotify and all that. As you said, you are absolutely correct, because the what you call the hosting platforms, which are like Spotify, Apple, and all that, are for distributing, right, your podcast, because the majority of people, the majority of people um, uh, don't really search for a podcast like on Google, but they will search on their app, on the app that they use to listen to music or to audio, which now is for the majority of the people Spotify, right? So when you distribute your um, podcast on Spotify, right, or on Apple iTunes, it's like, publishing your video on YouTube. Similar to that. In reality, YouTube hosts the video too. We do the hosting, so you control, because you are the owner of your web space, right? Even if we actually provide you this service, but we are not like YouTube or Facebook or something like that. You pay, so the space you rented from us, but it's yours, okay? And our business models align, right? And our business goals. We thrive if you thrive, and at the same time, you thrive if we can keep our platform going and our platform successful. Anyway, so you host your podcast on our websites, and then you can share it, so people, when they search on Spotify, for example, and let's use as an example, it's a great example and a great website, the one by Charles Harris, Hebrew Power Words, okay? That's his podcast. And then when you search, for example, on Spotify for Hebrew Power Words, most likely his podcast would come out. Okay. So at that point, you listen and you are hooked, let's say, are engaged with that podcast on Spotify, but the audio and everything is actually hosted on our platforms. That is what the RSS feed is for syndicating, right? So for sharing, right? Distributing your contents throughout different platforms, throughout different means. So I hope I answered your question, Andre, and it was a great observation, obviously. These MobiFirst webinars help so much to understand MobiFirst platform to offer service to customer client. Thank you, Omar. We actually do this exactly for this reason, because we understand that even if MobiFirst is very simple to use, it is like a little bit like a fractal, right? You know what a fractal is, no? Those drawings where there are like a tree with leaves, and then you go and you check the leaf, and then each leaf has more leaves, and on and on and on and on. And that is more or less what MobiFirst looks like, right? I mean, it's a very simple platform that with templates and 2 or 3 clicks, it would allow you to create your website very, very simply, for example. Then you say, well, okay, but let's see what I can do with, I don't know, e-commerce. And then you start digging into e-commerce. And then so you start selling a few products. And then you say, well, yeah, okay, but let's see inventory management. Let's see affiliate marketing. Let's see, I don't know, cart abandonment. And so you go, and and so obviously you could be overwhelmed. And so that is why in these webinars we try to go deeper into each topic. And one thing which would be very important for us is understanding what are the topics that you would be more interested in, and what are the topics that you want us to cover, and that you want me especially to cover and to talk about, because there are so many things we can talk about, and I even forgot about the podcast widget in reality. And the last time we wanted to talk about the digital product and the podcast widget, and then we talked 1 hour about the digital product, because also now one has so many quirks and tricks and things that you can do and customize, and options and all that. So yeah, that is a little bit what how the MobiFirst platform works. Yeah, thank you, Rob, for sharing the link to Audacity. Yes. But people can listen to the podcast. Yes, Dawn, exactly. That is, I think, the beauty. And again, that is the beauty of our platform. And I remember when I used to be, again, more engaged with podcasts. and there were these podcast hosting platforms where they boasted the fact that you could, add your podcast, and then they would generate this RSS feed. That's all it is. And then they even had a player that you could, embed somewhere. That is exactly what we have. You have your website, you add your podcast widget, and so you have two options at that point. Listen on the website, right? Just like in a podcast, just like, sorry, in a blog post, with the player that you can customize. By the way, the player is HTML, so you can customize it with CSS as much as you want. And then the RSS feed, so you can share it on Spotify, on Apple iTunes, and on all of the other platforms that you might be interested in using to share and to distribute your podcast, right? So yeah, that is it. And speaking about CSS, obviously, thank you, Scotty, for sharing the link to my CSS course. It's always available. I'm thinking about another course now, and I would be very interested actually in hearing what you have to suggest and what you would like to learn about from me. And if you want to buy the CSS course, again, the people that are taking it are say that it is very useful, and I'm really grateful to all the people. Obviously, I want to thank every single one of the people that bought the course, and I'm very happy to hear that it is useful in learning and in becoming better, in gaining more knowledge, that it's not just theoretical knowledge. That is always our goal at MobiFirst, and that was my goal, and it will always be my goal with all my courses, offering some knowledge which is not just theoretical. It's not just nice to know how to use CSS, something that is actionable and that can be, and that has a positive ROI, in a sense, something that you can learn, that you can then use, in your work, that you can use with your customers, that you can use to earn more, to build better websites, and to grow your business without resorting to other developers, which can be very extremely expensive. So again, the ultimate goal is to give you all of the tools, let's say technical tools and knowledge tools, to make you successful, right? As successful as you can, right? So that is like to build the best version of yourself in the web marketing and in the business that we're talking about. This is the ultimate goal, the ultimate vision that we have at MobiFirst. And I know it sounds maybe cheesy, or even you have already heard it and all that, but that is literally what I started this with. That what the vision that me and Scotty shared, and what we are all here for, again, to bring this opportunity, because the web, the internet, this opportunity is huge, still huge, and it's still an incredibly underexplored,
It's almost untapped still.
you can do so many things. And you see that every time we do a webinar, every time we meet, every time we talk about other business opportunities, other tools, other features, other ideas. And that is what this is all about, generating a positive and cycle of ideas, implementations, revenues, ideas, implementations, errors, mistakes, corrections, learning, revenues, ideas. I mean, this cycle is what will make you more successful, whatever that means, which means earning $100,000 per month, which means feeling better with yourself, which means helping your local community be online and share their information and all that. Because again, we sometimes forget what this is all about. I just wanted to take a second to share our vision with with you guys, because I think it's important to always, to talk about the technical aspects, um, and that's really what it is. Answering Omar's question, in reality, when you probably listen to podcasts when you work out, and you listen on like Spotify or something like that. So when you share the RSS feed to Spotify or whatever, so you are added to their, let's say, directory. At that point, they handle that, because the RSS feed that you share with the episodes, it contains all of the episodes. So it will just keep going. It depends on them. We create our RSS feed that allows them to do whatever you tell them to do. So that is really the way it works. Yeah. Now, I don't know if there's anything else to say. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. If there are
No, I
no
believe so.
questions, I hope you start using the podcast. I have to say, last thing, that when I actually had my podcast, again, it was a podcast here in Italy. It was relatively successful, and it's not hard if you do, like, if you do regular episodes. You talk about something interesting. The podcast word is, because the audio, as Omar said, when you do workout, when you do a walk, when you go to work, you listen to a podcast. That is something. And again, the podcast is a very good way to generate and to create a bond with your community, which you can then use however you want, promoting your products, or just creating the bond, promoting your brand. The podcast is a huge brand building activity, is a huge brand building tool. And so that is, and again, I gave you today the a simple yet complete, I guess, explanation of what you can do with our podcast system. You've seen we have created a podcast literally from zero to 100, from zero to podcast in 10 minutes. Obviously, you need time to record that's another story, though. Under a technical point of view, it takes you 30 seconds to get up and running with your podcast. So you don't have any more excuses. You don't have any more excuses. Don, yeah, the podcast is popular because it's audio only, right? So that's why it has had so much success, because again, as Omar said, while you work out, you listen, right? You cannot, you wouldn't be, or while you drive, that's also another common usage of the podcast, right? So the absence of a video in this case is a feature. Actually, that's what the podcast, all of the podcasts are about, right? So yeah, that is pretty much it for me. Again, I remind you, and again, thank you, Scotty, for sharing the link to the course. I remind you, my CSS course. If you want to learn more, if you have any other idea, share them about something you want to learn, something you want me to talk about. We will never run out of topics to talk about in the platform, but I would be very, very interested. Um, yeah, exactly, Omar, exactly. You can record it again. I did a few episodes recording it on my iPhone. So yeah, it can work as long as you just record an audio, you save it as an MP3, and then you upload it to your site builder.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Another great one. That was, again, why this is one of the rare ones where almost no questions were coming in, Silvio, as you were presenting, because again, it was like everybody was, oh, wow, we have that. Maybe I need to go and look at it more other than it's just a widget on the widget page, if you will. So
Yeah.
that was awesome. I was glued to it too. So thank you so much. And then, as he says, the CSS, and then keep in mind that that also gives you an hour with Silvio. That's very cool. And then remember, that's a one-time payment, right? So how often you get an ROI where you pay once and then you get to hold on to that for years, decades, and always have a reference guide. So it's quite a powerful platform and quite a powerful course to go right along with it. So awesome. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Silvio. And then
Thank
I
you.
will be sending out a webinar invite for White Label here this week. And I plan on doing it again this Thursday. And then towards the end of the month, we'll actually be bringing out the Academy again. And we're going to be doing some giveaways. Yes, we're going to give away some full platforms, which is worth a lot of money, but you're going to have to attend the webinar. All right. Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
All right. We'll
Bye-bye.
see this on YouTube with by tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.